So we are here again in the FlightFactor 777-300ER. We're going to be flying back to Heathrow this evening. I want to use this flight just to have a look at the engine age options and just to see how that impacts the fuel burn. So we're going to come from the simulation menu down to equipment and structure. And if you recall from previous videos, we've been showing you that our fuel burn has been a bit better than the forecast. So I've tweaked both the left and right engine up to a normal engine age with an aircraft age of 9 years. Now what's quite interesting to note as well is I'm using the same situation or variations of that same situation where we originated in Amsterdam, flew over to Toronto, down to Sao Paulo, back to Chicago, and now we're going to go over to Heathrow as we discussed. So I've just been saving the flights, as you see that I do as I go along, so I'm just using the last save situation. Do you think they're discussing what to have for tea? So I'm relying on the previous crew to have left this in a tidy state, but of course I now need to follow my flows. So starting with the overhead. So wasn't a lot to do, very tidy indeed, and do note that we are running on external power. So altimeter is 299 as 0 and we'll reset the minima. Now there is a new option, I'm not using it, but there's a new option that will now automatically sync the QNH over. So just to go and enable that in the EFB. So I've just put those back to, well certainly that one back to the default of 100, wound that down to 0. That's just a visual reminder for me that if I see those values like that, I know that I've not put in the correct values for those. In other words, if you're going to go on the runway and you've got an altitude of 0, you've missed something in your takeoff prep. Do you remember getting your data from SimBrief and putting in the correct call sign is going to be essential for you to use the new uplink feature. I say new, about a couple of months now since that went live. So uplink is ready, load it, activate it and execute it. It is normal to get a few messages pop up here as well, as it is of course responding to a plethora of data that you've just given the FMCs. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee while we just have a little boogie to the boarding music. Coffee duly slurped, now we are being refueled. Perfect. I've just accepted the values here. Do remember your gross weight's going to continue to increase in line with your fuel that's currently loading. So that's therefore normal to get an insufficient fuel message because we don't have enough fuel, as the name suggests, to fly this route without probably needing to swim a few thousand miles. I did see a question the other day in relation to what do we do with the wind data, so let's go to the legs page. Let's have a look at route data, and when you click on route data, as you can see now you've got a prompt for the wind, and you could, as we've discussed before, no harm in going into those and entering it all manually if you wanted to do that, but let's go back to route data and we'll load it. You can see a slight impact there to the arrival time, but of course only by a few minutes. But let's just remind ourselves then, if we go into this waypoint here, you'll see not only the wind information expressed as direction and speed, you'll see the outside air temperature as well. That's another piece of information that the FMC factors in to the fuel burn calculations and other calculations. When you click on next page, that will show you the next waypoint and so on. And remember what we said before, if there's not much of a change, if you was doing this manually, 30 degrees 30 knots I think we agreed on, you don't really need to enter it, but of course this has all been pulled in from SimBrief. It's saved us a lot of typing, so we've got individual values for each waypoint. It gets a bit more chilly as we progress through our flight. So I don't really want to do anything else in relation to the performance page until we A, confirm that we've got fuel loaded to the quantity that requested, and B, that we've got the final zero fuel weight figure. So because we are taking on fuel and boarding passengers, we're going to leave the seatbelt sign off, and that is of course if we had to clear the airplane quickly, having the seatbelt on at that point would actually mean that they would they'd take a few seconds longer basically before they could get up out of their seats and get out quick. We have based our takeoff calculations on a gross weight of 268.7 tonnes. So 20% with a 44 degree assumed temp. And flap 5 gives me those speeds, so just need to enter the centre of gravity. Refuelling is complete. Okay, so the MCP set the V2 speed and our initial cleared altitude, and the flight directors can go on with LNAV and VNAV.
VNAV speed on.
Actually, I've changed my mind on LNAV. We'll go with leave that off, and we'll just use heading select. So like on your 737, if you're familiar with this check after start where you go 2, 4, 6, 3. So in this aircraft we're going to go 2, 5, 7, 8. So we're looking for 20% N1, around about 500 EGT, 70% N2, and 800 kilos per hour per engine. About there. That one's just slowly creeping up.
Thrust reference, VNAV speed on. Auto throttle hold. VNAV speed, thrust reference. Heading hold, autopilot engaged.
Let me share a little bit of analysis with you before we land. So at the start of this video I said that I'd increase the engine aid slider to normal, and it's now important for me to ensure that the fuel burn still aligns with forecast. So the results here speak for themselves. So 6 hours 31 minutes into the flight we should have burnt 49.6 tonnes of fuel. My data logger shows that 6 hours 31 into the flight we'd burnt 49,523 kilos of fuel. As you can imagine, that is more than acceptable. So if you are changing these, do them in small increments. I'm not saying this is the holy grail, but my SimBrief profile is just based on the basic 300ER profile. There's a great video that FlightFactor have done which shows you how to configure, create your own SimBrief profile, but for me I just like to use the simple one, the basic one, and for each flight I just enter the zero fuel weight that I'm planning, and then as I've shown you previously I adjust the number of passengers, bags within the plane itself. I did step climb as well as per the schedule in the FMC, so again I'm not using them on the flight plan, I'm just doing what the FMC wants. In this case we stepped up 2,000 feet in the last 1,000 miles of the flight. Okay, so let's go and land now in Heathrow.
300, approaching minimums. 200 minimums. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Final piece of analysis then for this flight is just the wind speeds en route. So that's what the blue line's showing, that's the wind speed. The orange line is the wind speed shown as a headwind and tailwind component. So when it's in the negative, that's the tailwind, it's in the positive, it's a headwind. So not much of a headwind on this flight, as you'd expect. We're going west to east. You can see that initially in the first couple of hours we'd got a tailwind that was kind of weakening off. Wind was very strong though at that point, but unfortunately that was just a crosswind by that point. And then towards the latter part of the flight again, the wind speed increased, and we benefited from another tailwind. So what that shows me is, as you'd expect, going west to east, an average tailwind component. Hope you've enjoyed this. Do look out for the second video where I'm just going to increase those engine age sliders, and we'll see if we get any impact on the fuel burn. Do like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.